This Forrest Johnsonville raid. For damage done to the enemy, probably one of the most important and most damaging raids that Forrest will make in a war. But it's going to delay him of getting back to rendezvous with Hood at Florence, Alabama, until the 15th day of November. Everything is dependent on speed. So Forrest will report to Hood on the 15th day of November. Forrest will, and that will delay Hood's advance from Florence until the 20th of November, which becomes very important as they race for first Columbia, Spring Hill, and Franklin takes place. Now, Forrest in late October was given authority to make a raid deep into West Tennessee. His objectives were to seriously interdict Union River transportation on the Tennessee River. And the Union, once this was occupied by the Union area, this was an important garrison point for the Union to guard the Tennessee River approaches to Pittsburgh Landing, to northern Alabama, etc. So Forrest will leave the area of in northwest Mississippi and will arrive in this area on the 2nd and 3rd day of November. As it's going to tell you there, he's going to seize this position here, take possession of it from the Federals, and he is going to begin attacking Union shipping that is plying the Tennessee River. The Union have a squadron of light draft gunboats under the command of Lieutenant Commander Fitch. And Forrest, the river is comparatively narrow here. And he's going to set up guns here and downstream from us. And he's going to capture several Union transports. He'll convert his men into horse marines and put them on these vessels. Then he will proceed upriver to Johnsonville. Johnsonville had become a very important base for the Union. Long before Sherman began the Atlanta campaign on the 7th day of May 1864, they had completed a rail line coming out from Nashville that will eventually reach the Tennessee River at the mouth of Duck River, where they established a base of Johnsonville. So to get supplies into Nashville to supply Sherman in the Atlanta campaign, he can draw from two places. He can draw from Johnsonville by rail into Nashville, then over the Nashville and Chattanooga to Chattanooga, or he can draw by the Nashville and Louisville Railroad. So this is a very important base at Johnsonville. A large number of buildings there, and Forrest's eyes are set on capturing and destroying Johnsonville. He will never cross the river. He will set his guns up on the west side of the river opposite Johnsonville. Keep them screened as long as possible. On the other side of the river at Johnsonville and downstream from it, he sets guns up and will trap 16 Union transports, several Union gunboats, and he will panic the Union so much that they destroy this base. But in the long run, this is going to delay his return and joining Hood, because Hood is not going to be able to advance from Tuscumbia until after Forrest completes his destruction in this raid, because Forrest will play a very important role, and so that means that maybe this hurts the Union supply problems, made them embarrass lots of Yankees, but it is going to delay Hood's leave from Florence for 5 days. And maybe that 5 days might have been very important in the Confederates getting to Columbia first. And then once they get to Columbia first, they never run into the problem of getting to Spring Hill first. And when that doesn't work out, it ends up in the Battle of Franklin. So that you cannot forget the Forrest raid here. It's a great success on Forrest's part, but in the long term way of the Civil War, he probably wasn't worth what it's going to cost later on. So, but it's a very probably the most devastating raid launched on any supply depot and cost of money and effort and equipment that will be launched in the Civil War will be the Johnsonville raid. Forrest becomes rather famous or infamous there among his cannoneers because he's helping man a gun and he doesn't know the commands very well. So what he's going to block the river here, both above and below Fort Hyman, and that's where he captures the first vessels he'll convert into gunboats to give him a squadron of gunboats and get volunteers to them to operate on the Mississippi, on the Tennessee River. A number of them have been explored. They're on the National Register, the wreckage of the number of the both gunboats and the transports. So there were 60. He's destroyed 16 vessels altogether at Johnsonville. So that's a very important point that Fort Hyman plays later in the war. All right, well, it's time to continue. If they get high water, it's going to flood them out. Kentucky is now on the Union side, so they're no longer by the constraints, but they do not put enough labor and energy into solving the problem. The problem is to keep Fort Henry where it is. Now, Fort Henry at that time has no cannons in it. It's not even ready for guns in the water battery. It has its outer defense trenches thrown up, but there are no cannons in October in either heavy guns in either Fort Donaldson or Fort Henry. They will not get, and when they bring guns here, they will only arm Fort Henry. They do not put any heavy guns in here. The only guns they will have here will be field artillery weapons. The heavy guns are all in Fort Henry. And they only have two really effective guns in Fort Henry. And that is the 10-inch Columbiad, which is going to crash against its herders after about the 7th or 8th shot and be out of action. And the rifle on the will, after they repair after they've cleared the vent, it'll fire and the shell will explode in the chamber of the gun, destroy the gun as a practical weapon, and kill and wound a number of Confederates. So that leaves just the 32s and pounder guns that are still on the river. And they're having to deal with each one of the Eads, the 3 city Eads gunboats, each have 3 rifled 42-pounders in their bow. The 42-pounder smoothbore gun fires a 73-pound projectile rifle shell. So that means, and then the Essex has only 2 guns firing forward. So the Union have firing at Fort Henry as they close the distance. And I will go along with Foote. He says Cincinnati will be within 400 yards of Fort Henry when Fort Henry raises the white flag. So Essex will be knocked out of action. So that takes 2 of the guns away. So the Union still are using 4 guns and each firing forward in each of the 3 cities' ironclads. These ironclads are designed to fight bows on. Their armor, they're only partially armored on the sides, and they have no armor on the stern. So and Tillman knows on the morning of the 5th, he's going to save the garrisons, but he's going to remain behind with Captain Taylor and the heavy artillerists, and he'll stay with them. And they're going to have to man the 17 guns, of which only 11 bear on the river in Fort Henry. And of the 11 guns that bear on the river, the 2 most effective ones are put out of action. One by self-destruction and one by an accident. So and the Army ain't going to be there. Now the Navy, remember, is under the Army's administrative control. So Foote is under the Army's administrative control. Foote can tell Grant, he can suggest to Grant that you better start your troops under Smith moving south on the west side of the river, and McClellan on the east side of the river. You better start them several hours. If we start together at 10 o'clock, I will bombard and take that fort before you people are even in the area. And that's just what happens. So all the Confederates escape, and they find higher pulling on the road they're retreating on, and they'll abandon 6 guns. But the only Confederates that are casualties of either being captured, killed, or wounded are the ones in Fort Henry, and they number less than 80 men. All right. When they lay out the fort, this is the upper battery. You're going to have here positioned on the 12th day of February. You're going to have 9 guns in the upper battery. They're going to look just like they did then. They're going to be 8 32-pounders and 1 10-inch Columbia. The 10-inch Columbia is down there. They're managed by Beaumont and Bidwell. They're manned by Beaumont and Bidwell's companies of the 30th and the 31st Tennessee. The battery is in charge of Lieutenant Dixon, who hasn't got long to live on the 12th. Now the lower battery will be seen only from our bus. You have 3 guns in that battery. Only 1 is effective, and that's the 6.5-inch rifle gun. The 2 32-pounder carronades are not worth the powder to blow them to hell. They're obsolete. The first action that will take place here will be on the 13th. That's the day the weather is changing. It will get progressively colder throughout the 13th. If you were like this fellow here and threw his blanket away, or like Private Crowley and threw his overcoat away, he's going to be sucking wind as that day turns progressively cold. Arriving here to announce her presence on the Cumberland River will be Carondelet, one of the Eads ironclads, commanded by Harry Walk. They will come up the river. You'll first see their smoke down below that bend. See that bend down there? You're not going to see the Carondelet till it rounds that bend. There is no snow underground on the 13th. But on the 14th, there'll be 2 inches of snow on the ground where you're standing. Carondelet will close from within about 400 yards of the obstruction. Look down the river and you can see a buoy. See that buoy? The Confederates have positioned an obstruction, a raft composed of logs strung across the river from one side to the other, hopefully to hold the gunboats under its fire. But it's going to break and not be a good obstacle. The Carondelet will arrive within the area of that buoy, and it will open fire to let Grant's troops, who are investing Fort Donaldson that day, they will make 2 attacks. Now, if you read that sign at the visitor where we eat lunch, it only mentions 2. They don't say that C.F. Smith will attack the Confederate right with Cook's brigade and lose 130 men. Grant doesn't want to fight going on. They'll say McClernand, so Smith attacked without Grant's orders, and McClernand will attack without Grant's orders. But that sign should also say Smith attacks in the morning. But it's aimed towards satisfying the Grant hero worshippers, because McClernand will attack Maney's battery in the afternoon and lose about 200 men. And the Confederates will suffer a grievous loss. Lieutenant Dixon, who is in command of this 9-gun battery, they will hit the number 4 gun. 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to burst, and a bolt, and a nut of a bolt is going to hit Dixon in the temple, and he is dead. He's gone. He's gone to heaven or hell, I don't know. But that 1 gun is out. So that means on the morning of June of the 14th, when the temperature is 20 degrees above 0, they are going to have only 8 guns in this position. 4 7 32-pounders and the 1 10-inch Columbia that went down there. Now, Grant is of the opinion that the Navy can repeat what they did at Fort Henry. But there, the fire was level with the water. Here, you're going to be delivering plunging fire. Plunging fire is using this elevation, and it's going to give the Union HE Bedford Forrest, who before the war is over, has no fear of gunboats. He's standing up in there about 200 yards from us. And when he sees the gunboats at about 1 o'clock, you'll see plumes of smoke out of sight below that bend. And rounding that bend will be 4 each series gunboats. Louisville, Captain Dove. St. Louis, Captain Polney, aboard which is Andrew Hull Foot is in the pilot house. On its left will be Pittsburgh, another sister, commanded by Egbert Thompson, and on the far left will be Carondelet, commanded by Harry Walk, a good artist out of Chillicothe, Ohio. He has lots of drawings in Battles and Leaders, Volume 1. So they're going to take position abreast in the strait. And they're going to be from right to left. Louisville, closest to the bank. St. Louis, Pittsburgh, and Carondelet. The Confederates are going to hold their fire. Forrest will say to the chaplain of the 1st Tennessee Cavalry, says, Reverend Kelly, say your prayers, because only God can help us now. And Forrest's mind is going to end up the same way as at Fort Henry. But the Confederates are not idiots. They have put targets on the various trees and various ranges from us. So they know when the vessels start approaching the targets, they know the range. They've also made one bad blunder. Since the pilot houses are not armored on the outside, they have piled hammocks around the pilot houses. The hammocks are white canvas, and they look to the Confederates like a bullseye, which you should aim at. And that's what the Confederates are going to do. So maybe the Reverend Kelly's prayers are going to be answered, because maybe God is going to help them now. As they close, and Carondelet will approach them within 400 yards. It will be the boat on the left, on the north, one of the vessels. They begin to get hits almost immediately. Following them are the 2 timberclads, Tyler and Lexington. Perhaps a short shot from one of the 2 timberclads explodes on the fantail of Louisville, and it cuts the wire cables that go from the spindle of the pilot wheel into the tiller of the rudders, and they lose control. They also hit her in the pilot house. About this time, there was a terrible grunt from Flag Officer Foot, and the shell hits the pilot house. Fragments of the river are going in his shoulder and into his foot. On June 26th of the next year, he'll die of blood poisoning from that wound in the foot. So he is disabled. The pilot at the wheel is dead. He grabs the wheel, and it is soon out of control. So you soon have drifting downstream Louisville and and St. Louis. They hit Pittsburgh twice between wind and water. That's where you want to hit ships, because that is at the water line. And she starts shipping water badly. So they run the guns to the fantail, rear of the vessel, try and lift the bow higher out of the water. And Pittsburgh is now drifting down the stream. That will be over here about 400 yards, and she takes a terrible pounding. A shell comes in on the deck, spinning, goes off. 3 men are decapitated. The Confederates had suffered trouble too. The Tenn Columbia had ceased fire. She's overloaded, and she is thrown back against the herders. The herders are which patrol the recoil. See, when you come back, the gun will come sliding on the transom. And it'll come up there, and where you have the cup herders, it will catch the gun, and it will absorb the shock, not dismount. But it doesn't, and the Columbia is dismounted. Meanwhile, the 6 1/4-inch rifle has been silenced. Now, the feared and hated gunboats are drifting downstream. 3 of them out of control. The Confederates come charging out of Fort Donaldson, cheering and shouting. They have this time the shoe is on the other foot. The plunging fire of this battery have disabled 2, 3 of the 4 gunboats. Seriously, they'll drift down out of range and pull into the landing on the west side of the river where the troop transports are. And Foote will send Grant a message, I'm going to have to go back to Mound City and Cairo. I've got to go back and get St. Louis repaired. I have to get Pittsburgh repaired. I have to get Confederate repaired. But I will leave Louisville here with you. So he asked Grant to come to him because he's been badly wounded. So that means that on the morning of the 15th, Grant, not expecting a Confederate attack, will leave orders to his men. Wallace has now arrived. The 3 divisions infesting Donaldson, they're not to bring on an engagement. And he then proceeds to the landing. And by noon, he is meeting in the cabin of St. Louis with Foote. And Foote's going to say, I have to go back to Cairo and Mound City. I have to have significant repairs done to Pittsburgh, Rondelet, and St. Louis. I'll leave Captain Dove with Louisville here. And Grant says, how long are you going to be gone? He says, I may be gone a week or 2 weeks. I can't say. And Grant says, all right, we'll dig in, remain on the defensive until you come back. Then about noon, as we get in the early afternoon, some excited staff officers arrive with bad news for Grant. The enemy has sallied forth. They've massed most of their 10,000 of their men to strike and roll up the Union right and drive the Union back. There will be certain errors the higher command will make. If we drive the Union back, what are we going to do next? And no one really understands. Now, Pillow believes if we drive the enemy back, we're going in and pick up the 30th Tennessee, pick up the guys in manning the batteries, pick up more supplies, and march out the Charlotte Road. Buckner understood once we've driven them back, we are keeping going. we're not going back into Donaldson. We're not going to worry about picking up the troops that we've left in Donaldson. And then you have General Floyd, who's the worst type of commander you have. Our best director the Park Service has ever had, and I know there are other Park Service here, and it's George B. Hartzog. We've not had a Park Service director since George Hartzog that has gonads. The two women can't have gonads anyway, but the men have the same problem as director. Hartzog is the last one. He said he preferred a decision, worse than no decision. That's the fastest way when Hartzog is director to get in his shit list. It's no decision. And that's what Floyd is going to be like that. He cannot make a decision. And when they make no decision, Grant will make decisions. So that's generally the story here. I'll call on my friend Brother Lewis, anything to go, because now we're going over and talk about Grant's counterattack over on the Eddy building. Because we've got roughly a long 2 hours here, and I usually have 4 hours here. And for myself, the 12th of April, and 12th of February. Men like Marshal Krolik have thrown their overcoat and blanket away. He figures it's warm all the time in Dixie. When they wake up on the morning of the 13th, it is starting to get cool. Marshall isn't as smart as he thought he was. So on the 13th, McClernand will move further to the east and northeast, but not as far as the Charlotte Road, as he extends the investment line toward Lick Creek. On the opposing ridge to us, on the other side of Hickman Creek, would be Charles Ferguson Smith's division. Now, Grant's orders on the 13th, he wants his men to entrench, he wants them to reconnoiter, but he doesn't want them to attack the enemy. Now, Grant has some problem. One of his problems is if he likes you, you can do no wrong. If he doesn't like you, you better look out. And Smith will attack that morning. Loses 145 men out of Cook's brigade, mostly Iowans and Illinois people, attacking up this way. Now here in front of us, the ground is cleared for maybe 100 yards in front of us. And then you go into the woods. This would be the Abattis. In the afternoon, General McClernand will attack Maney's battery at Hyman's position. He's going to lose probably 40 more men than Smith, and Grant will be very unhappy with him. But he's done the same thing that Smith does in the morning, and Grant doesn't read him off, Smith off, but he reads McClernand off. So it shows that Grant has somewhat of a character flaw. If he likes you, you won't get chewed. If he doesn't like you, you're going to get chewed. So the Confederates, after their victory, and Marshall has spent a hell of a cold night on the 13th and 14th, 20 above zero, no overcoat, no blanket. And by the Union gunboats attack at 1:30, and by 3 o'clock, they have been repulsed. Heavy damage, heavy casualties, and drop down river. The Confederates then meet that night. Now they have 4 generals here. Bushrod Johnson will not be in the decision loop. In the sedition loop, there will be Floyd, the senior officer, Brigadier General. There will be Buckner, next in command, next in seniority, and Buckner, third in seniority. And they're going to decide, well, the Union is heavily reinforced. Lew Wallace has arrived with a brigade from Fort Henry. They've arrived with reinforcements, Thayer and Cruft coming all the way from Paducah. And in view of that, the Confederates decide we're going to break out. And the way we're going to break out, we're going to mass our strength on our left, near the Charlotte Road. And we're going to mass about 10,000 men. And we're going to attack about 5:30 in the morning. And use our mass force that we've assembled there on our left to roll back the Union right. It's like you open a door and open a route via the Charlotte Road out of Fort Donaldson and to Nashville. Now, they never write out what they're going to do if they're successful. Now, Pillow comes away from the meeting thinking that once we have rolled back the Union right, once we've opened the road to Charlotte, we will go back into Fort Donaldson. We've got the bulge on the Yankees. We'll go into Donaldson, pick up those guys that are manning the guns and the water batteries, pick up some more rations, and then we will go back out, providing that door of escape hasn't closed. Butler believes that I'm going to pull all my men out of this section of the line, except one regiment. Now, you don't want to be Colonel Head. You have the 30th Tennessee, you have 500 men, most of them armed with shotguns or hunting rifles. So you're going to hold this line here that has been formerly held by 4,000 men, with 500 men. Where are your men going over there and take part in the breakout? Butler believes that we're going to take our rations with us. And we're going to keep right on going. Now, Floyd is supposed to draft an order and tell them what they're going to do. They have a completely different idea. I'd like to bring it up to the major here because she knows on orders. You best put things into writing, particularly when you're dealing with a man who has been a politician all his life, two men. Floyd has been governor of Virginia for 3 terms, 1 year each term. He'd had the Nat Turner Rebellion on one of his terms, and he had not been a Secretary of War, and probably one of the worst Secretary of Wars we'd had under Buchanan. And then you have Pillow, who was very close to the President of the United States, who makes him a major general in the Mexican War with no past experience. Doesn't understand chain of command very well. But no orders are made. And no one really knows that Pillow and Buckner have different ideas on their final mission if they break out. This is very, very important. Well, the Confederates will attack an hour late. And they're very, very successful. They roll back MacArthur's brigade, no relation to Douglas. They will roll back 2 divisions of Oglesby, a former governor of Illinois division. His two of his brigades will be rolled back, and Wallace and McClernand will send a message to Wallace with a copy going to Grant. Now Grant isn't here. Grant is down 5 miles away, meeting with Foote in the Foote's office aboard St. Louis. While Foote is explaining to Grant, I cannot support you until I get Carondelet, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh repaired. And it may take a week to do it. Grant says, I know it, and I'll have my men dig in and wait for you to effect repair. However, Foote says, I'll leave you 1 ironclad, Louisville, if you need any real help. But that's taking place from about 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. By 12, the Union has taken a blow to the solar plexus. MacArthur's brigade has been driven back more than a mile. In McClernand's division, Oglesby's brigade and Wallace's brigade have been driven back a mile. And McClernand is asked for help from Wallace. Now, Grant's orders when he left was, I don't want us to take an offensive operation. If you're to attack, you can fight defensively, but I do not want an offensive operation. It goes to Wallace. Wallace is a citizen soldier. If McClernand's in trouble, he says, I'm going to his help. But I will notify Grant that I'm doing it. And he'll send a message of Grant's initial message to him, saying, I need help. So Wallace will move his 2 brigades, Smith's and Thayer's, to support McClernand. Grant now finds out there's bad trouble. Some of his staff arrive and say, we got big trouble. The enemy has sallied forth. They've driven McClernand and his 2 brigades, MacArthur and his brigade, and Wallace is moving to him, and they're also now driving Cruft's brigade of Wallace's men back. So Grant decides, I better go see what's going on. So when he starts back, he'll meet Charles Ferguson Smith near the Crisp House, which is over here on Hickman Creek, which is Grant's headquarters. And when he sees Smith, he says, get your men in case we're going to counterattack. He didn't say counterattack, he says, prepare your men to counterattack. Then he rides on the Winds Ferry Road, and he finds all confusion. He finds panic-stricken Union soldiers feeling down into Bufford Hollow, getting as far away from the rebels as they can. And he runs into Lew Wallace, and Grant captures some Yankee prisoners, rebel prisoners, and he's going to question them. They say we're breaking out, and that's why we're carrying these extra rations with us. So Grant then makes a decision and tells Wallace and McClernand to counterattack because he believes the enemy is in a state of flux or no decision making because the 2 rebel junior officers have a different idea. Pillow is we go back in, pick up our men we've left in the perimeter, pick up the guys manning the water battery, pick up some supplies, have them join us, and then we march out. Butler believes that we're out now, we're in the open country, we keep going. Now, Floyd is the worst you could have. He can't make a decision. As he vacillates between what Butler wants him to do, suggests the Butler's course of action, and Pillow. And we'll go back and forth for about an hour, not making any decision, no decision. And the major knows that's not what you're supposed to do. And Grant will come back here and tell C.F. Smith, former commandant of West Point. Now, when Grant had been a cadet, he was a commandant. And that means if Grant got in any trouble at West Point, that's whose office he deals with. And now, it doesn't really bother Smith, an old army man, that's this volunteer soldier, now is his boss. And he's going to the colonel of the 2nd Iowa, Colonel Tuttle, and I said, we're going to charge those rebels to our front. Now remember, holding this line, which had been 4,000 men on the 13th, is held by 500 men, most of them armed with shotguns or squirrel rifles. So Smith takes position, deploys his men by battalion. One battalion in front, elbow touching elbow. He's on his horse between them and the head of the 2nd Battalion, moving elbow by elbow. They're moving up other regiments to support them, and there's going to be a struggle here, and the Confederates are going to give way. As you would expect, attacked by 2,500 men, 500 men armed with shotguns and squirrel rifles, and they drive them back across the hollow here and back onto the ridge line that we came back from the water battery of. By the time they reach there, Butler is back, and he's deployed his men, and he's going to hold that interior line. But very close. But if you from that interior line, you can bring your artillery fire on the water battery. So he has a key position here if the battle is renewed on the morning of the 15th. Now we will now go over to the Winds Ferry Road. We'll make a brief stop at the Visitor Center. And there we'll talk about what the generals are going to do when they meet. And you're going to have three generals. You're going to have one more interested about what's going to happen if he's captured. That's Governor Floyd. He's under investigation because the Indian girl was then under the War Department. And the guy for whom Clemson University is named was his son-in-law. And it seems that Mr. Clemson is cashing Indian bonds in for his own benefit. Fraud, waste, and abuse. He's also accused of overstuffing the southern armories, which is not true, because he isn't that smart. And then you have, and he says, I don't want to be the first Confederate general officer with the Yankees capture. Will they try me as a traitor? And he says, I can't surrender. And then Phil says, I'm the second most hated man in the Union, so I can't surrender. So they're going to pass to Buckner, the career West Pointer, and Floyd will say, I pass the command to Pillow. He says, I pass. He goes to Buckner, so Buckner is going to have to take the responsibility of dealing with Grant. Any questions? Now we're going to stop briefly at the Visitor Center. Brother Lewis will tell us how long we can stop there, and then we'll go over to the Forge Road, and then we'll leave. When they begin their advance from the Charlotte Road, they will be advancing this way, and they're going to be rolling the Union up like you would a carpet. They're on the Confederate right flank. They'll extend the wrong Bufford Hollow here, and over onto the Forge Road, which will come back on. And by 6:30, cold weather, the Yankees have too many men huddling around their campfire. And the Confederate people in Simonton's brigade strike MacArthur's brigade and start driving them this way, rolling them up just like you do white linoleum when you're laying it in the kitchen. You can't control it when it starts rolling up. So the Confederates have assembled 8,000 of the men in this attacking column with great depth. They'll be advancing this way as they move in that direction, coming out of Dover, and that road we went up will be Buckner's division. The Confederates will be rolling into the Union, then the flank, and rolling it this way, just like you when you were running from Patty Creek, rolling up the carpet, and linoleum, and there's so much pressure on it, it's rolling like the linoleum does. As they reach the area where this road goes out, they're going to hit General McClernand's division, Oglesby's brigade. 5 regiments of Illinois troops. Rock Jack Logan in command of the 31st. And they're going to continue. They're going to roll up Oglesby's brigade from right to left. The enemy are hitting us from you guys. You guys represent the Confederates. I'm representing the Yankees. And we're being rolling up that way. When Buckner strikes it, Oglesby's brigade collapses. Then Wallace's brigade, not Lew Wallace, but W.H.L. Wallace's brigade. And the 11th Illinois is charged by Forrest Cavalry. We're going to capture McAllister's battery. So as we get around 11 o'clock, the Union is in a bad way. MacArthur's brigade has been routed. Oglesby's brigade is being rolled up. They're hammering Wallace's brigade. And McClellan sends a message to Lew Wallace, who is holding the Union center, with McClellan on his right, Wallace in the center, and on the left, over on Eddyville Loop where we were, Charles Ferguson's Smith. Now remember, Grant's orders are, don't bring on a battle. Because he wants to find out what the Navy's going to do. But the Union did not bring on the battle. The Confederates have brought on the battle. And rolling up the Union like falling dominoes from southeast to southwest. So Wallace gets this message. Confederate says, I need help. They crushed MacArthur's brigade. Those wonderful guys in the 12th Illinois in their camel shatter hats. Crushed them. Mauled them. Violated them. And it looks good for the Confederates. And they're doing the same thing to Oglesby's brigade, the future governor. And now they're working over W.H.L. Wallace's command. McClellan asked for help. Asked Wallace to put the message on to Grant. We know where Grant is. He's aboard the gunboat St. Louis, meeting with Flag Officer Foote to find out what Flag Officer Foote can get back. His repaired vessel, his repaired ship. And Wallace decides to commit Cruft's brigade. Mostly Indiana's and Kentuckians. They do no better. In spite of Lew Wallace's gale, and crushed and pounding Cruft's brigade. The other brigade of Wallace's command, Taylor is getting engaged. Now, two things are happening. Grant finds out the enemy is sallied forth, and they've rolled up 4 Union brigades. Grant knows I better get back to do what's right. He begins to run into fight the Union soldiers. The Union soldiers all look like Lee Harvey Oswald as Don Rudy pulls the trigger. That means they're terrified. So Grant is going to return. They'll first stop at Charles Smith's command, the old army man, former commandant to the death when Grant was a cadet. And he says, I want you to stay where you are, but be prepared to attack if you hear from me. Grant will proceed on and meet Lew Wallace at Thayer. And he tells Lew Wallace, I want you to counterattack. Wallace and I want you to tell your men and counterattack. Now the Confederates have the terrible situation of Buckner wants to keep out going. Let's take the Charlotte Road and head for Nashville as fast as we can go. Buckner, Phil's fighting blood is up, and he wants to go back into town and do the perimeter, pick up the people manning the guns in the water battery, pick up ammunition, and then go out. Grant assesses the situation that the Confederates may be, as their attack crushed them, and our friend Floyd is first telling Buckner, good for you, Buckner, do just what you say. Take your 4,000 men and get out of here. He goes to Pillow. Pillow says, I'm going in to pick up more ammunition, pick up all our men in the water battery, and we'll go out together. Good boy. Oh, we'll do that. Then he's going to reverse himself and go back to what Buckner wants to do. So Pillow is doing what the Major knows. You don't make a decision. You are a mental coward, and you cannot make a decision. And the decision is, we'll fall back in. Forget it, Buckner. You're going to do what Pillow is. We're going to fall back into our defenses. Give up all we've sacrificed, our blood, and our men for driving back. Grant, however, has realized that, and he tells Smith to attack. And Smith, with 4,000 men, are going to hit those stretches held by the 30th Tennessee. The 30th Tennessee is armed with shotguns and squirrel rifles. They're poor defense against Wallace. So Grant is back over there. Butler will get back to the interior line. The interior line is that line we drove out to the water battery. And there they'll stop Smith's surge. But Smith has captured the advance line. And the Confederates decide we better be talking over. So, again, two men are not invited. Forrest, the chief of cavalry, is not invited to the staff meeting, nor is Bushrod Johnson. So the three at the staff meeting are Floyd, Pillow, and Butler. That's the order of their rank, going from the highest to lowest. Floyd is going to say, I understand the enemy are back where they were this morning. Actually, they're not. They're men around campfires and rail fences. Forrest goes out and comes back and tells them that. But the cowardly bastards don't believe it. And the orders from Floyd are, I am the most hated man in the Confederacy. And I cannot surrender myself. Because I may have grave charges brought against me. So then he turns to Pillow. If I turn over the command, will you let me withdraw my Virginians? There's 4 regiments of Virginia. And Wharton's brigade, the Parsons brigade, and 3 Virginia artillery regiments. So they're going to let him withdraw those men. Pillow says, well, if you're the most hated man in the South, I'm the next person. And he says, will you let me, tells to Butler, if I pass the command to you, will you let me use a keel boat and get my staff across the Cumberland River so we could go to Nashville. Butler thinks what a cowardly bunch these 2 men are. Forrest says, well, and he'll cuss them out. He says, well, you guys can do what you want, but I am not surrendering. I'm going to take my cavalry, we're going to ford Nick Creek, and we're going out on the Shenandoah. And he'll slam the door, and he will go on to be the only other big hero here is General Grant. So, they pass the command to, Floyd says, I pass the command to Pillow. This is like General Pillow. Pillow says, I pass it to Buckner. Buckner says, I accept. Bring me pen and pencil. Bring me paper and pen. And when 600 fresh reinforcements arrived here on 2 transports on the morning of the 16th Sunday, Floyd boards those with his 4 Virginia regiments, his 3 Virginia batteries, and they escaped. Now the Mississippians have to be live or making good statement. And the last they can see Floyd is standing on the fantail of one of the transports, waving his sword, yelling, come on, my brave Virginia. Those Mississippians have been dumped off that boat and will be surrendered. Pillow and his staff will get their horses aboard a keel boat and ferry across the river. Butler will then take his pencil and paper, and he will write. He knows who's in command. He knows Grant well. Pillow was in the class of 42. He had been a sophomore when Grant arrived at West Point as a plebe in 39. Better yet, he knew he had let Grant enough money to get to St. Louis. When Grant resigns from the Army, and in the end of the year evaluation by Captain Buchanan, Buchanan is going to say, Captain Grant, I have reports that I can document them that you have been drunk on duty and you've been gambling. You have two options: to resign from the Army, or I'm bringing charges against you and you'll be court-martialed. So Grant resigns from the Army, arrives in New York dead broke. He learns that Buckner is a exchange merchant there. He goes to Buckner, says, Buckner, you remember me well. You're the class of 42. I was the class of 43. And I have no money. I'm broke. And I need enough money to buy a ticket back to St. Louis, where I can be with my wife's family. And he got his money, is into the point of the realm, wrapped up. And then he's going to run. On, because of a change of command, I find myself in command at Fort Donaldson. And the situation is such that I believe it is necessary for the appointment of commissioners to work out terms for the possible surrender of Fort Donaldson. It goes to the line, they carry it, and Buckner gets it. Buckner reads it. He's astounded. And as Grant has written, General Buckner, I cannot agree to your suggestion on the appointment of commissioners to turn over terms for surrender of Fort Donaldson. The only terms I can give is immediate, unconditional surrender of the garrison. Buckner will say, that's rather ungenerous of me. And he says, well, and it reads Grant. Grant's excited when he reads it. He also is going to get a death sentence out of it. Why? For the president, he's going to be famous. The first genuine military hero the North had. And he signed it U.S. Grant. And he demanded unconditional surrender. And the press writes he likes cigars. He never smoked cigars up to that time. And he gets dozens of boxes of cigars. And he smokes them. At the last day of the wilderness, on the 6th day of May of 1634, when things hadn't gone well, Grant, one of Grant's staff officers, horse porter writes, and Grant goes to 28 cigars. What does he die of? Cancer of the throat. He will finish his memoirs, and 1 week later, Grant dies a very, very painful death. So I'm surprised that the anti-smokers don't use that story. So what we were going to do, we're going to drive out of here by way of the Winsbury Road. The Union troops are being driven back all the way. We drive the Winsbury Road, then we will turn into Sandy Road, and then we're on our way, and hopefully we'll be out pretty well out of here by 20 after 3. Any questions? Save them for on the bus or tonight.